Welcome to another episode of Pound for Pound Box Report, episode 339. I am your host, Michael. Joining me this week, usual cast of characters: Gail from Communities, Digital News, Falcon Valley Group, and NY Fights. Daniel from the Inscriber and For Boxing News. What's going on, lady and gent?
Hey there, folks. I get it. There's Monday Night Football. I get it. There's Dancing with the Stars. Who cares? You got the pound for pound boxing report right here. What more do you
Absolutely,
need?
absolutely. For those who are new to Pound for Pound Box Report, Pound for Pound Box Report live YouTube show, blog, and podcast website discussing all things boxing. The motto is: when boxing is good, we will talk about it. When it's bad, we will talk about it. Bottom line is, if it concerns the sweet science, it will get talked about. To find out the latest, more information about the show, you can go to the website, p4pboxingreport.com. If you want to email us, you can do so at p4pboxing at p4pboxingreport.com. On the site, just scour around, particularly the top center portion of the site. And my apologies for in terms of where are the missing shows. I will get that up. I will get those missing episodes up shortly. But anyway, you can navigate the page. You can find links to what follow us all over social media, um, on Twitter, YouTube, Tumblr, IG. Having issues with Facebook right now. I may have to start a brand new Facebook page because Facebook is giving me struggle right now. Also, links to where to find us all over the podcast realm, be it Spotify, be it Google Podcasts, be it Apple Podcasts, be it Anchor, anywhere and everywhere else in between, where you can donate. Got a Cash Me PayPal donation link. Um, and last but certainly not least, if you're looking to get yourself together as we head towards the end of the summer, heading into the fall, if you want to get your body right before the end of 2021, please check out my online coaching page. I'm an online coach for beachbody.com. Let's build together. October edition, new group challenge going down at the beginning. The first week of October is going to be focused on uh, boxing and resistance work. As I said before, if you're looking for a boxing based program, please check out 10 rounds. That's going to be one of the focuses of this upcoming group challenge in October. 10 rounds, a 6 week fitness program, 3 days that consist of workouts 5 days a week. 3 days are devoted to cardio, boxing based cardio. 2 days are resorted to weightlifting. Um, going to be featuring a program around that and Lift 4, which is also a resistance weightlifting program. If you're interested, please hit me up on Pound for Pound Boxing Report site, or you can email the show for those who are inquiring. Or if you're interested in any other programs on Beachbody.com, on Beachbody on Demand, be it the 645 program, which is going to drop this fall, I believe in October, the 6 weeks of the work, um, Bar Blend, Pio, old school P90X series 1, 2, and 3, Morning Meltdown for those who like to get their stuff done early in the morning. Um, Beachbody on Demand, any goal, anything that you're interested in fitness wise, Beachbody on Demand has it. Or just take advantage of the 2 week trial, Beachbody on Demand, free 2 week trial that goes all throughout the year. For 2 weeks, you have free access to all programs on Beachbody on Demand. I would take advantage of that if I were you. So yeah, check out my coaching page on Pound for Pound Box Report blog page. Let's get things going. Normally we would do recaps, but because of some breaking news that took place this afternoon, let's go to some news here. One news development in particular, and I wrote about this for Three Kings Boxing. Please check out threekingsboxing.com, your latest for boxing, for your latest, your best source for boxing information. Shout out to the fellas over there at Three Kings Boxing. The head of all of it, 2K, head of media relations, Bo, who we've had on this show numerous times, lead writer Bakari, senior writers Jarrell, aka Big Cool, myself, editor Red. Yeah, I wrote about this for threekingsboxing.com. You can find it. I believe it's one of the top stories there, top featured stories there, and that is one Manny Pacquiao, who during an interview on local television in his homeland of the Philippines, uh, in what was his formal announcement that he's decided to run for president of the country, Gail, he within that he announced that he is done with the sport. Um, he said he's had his enough with the sport. He's had his share. He's had enough with the sport. He said his family will always be the one that will tell him that it's time to go. He said he's done great things. He says his mission now is to help cultivate and help raise and support the next great champion there. Uh, a lot of speculation was around following his loss to Yordenis Ugas last month was whether Pacquiao would um, try to fight a rematch or will he decide to call it a day. Well, he's decided to, he decided now is the time for him to hang up the gloves.
Well, apparently so. You know, it was interesting. Night before last, I'm sort of being an insomniac night owl like I usually am, and I see Manny Pacquiao's Facebook live feed fire up. And it is a live feed from his political party's convention. In the Philippines, they've got political conventions ahead of their elections where they nominate their candidate, just like in the United States when the Republicans and the Democrats, hold their conventions, about a year prior to the next year's election. And that is where he was selected, made his acceptance speech. A lot of it's in Tagalog. My Tagalog is, to say it's bad would be over exaggerating, but you get the picture of what's going on. And listening to the comments, many of the comments were posted in English to figure out what's going on. So then, he starts making the rounds today about how this affects his boxing career, because there was speculation that even if he got nominated, which he did, and he's going forward, which he is, that he isn't going to have to hit it real hard before next year. And that, in between his duties as a sitting senator, which, let us not forget, he's been an elected official now for quite a few years, first as a congressman and now as a senator, that in the winter break between sessions, or for him it's the summer break in the Philippines, he could get in one last fight. Well, come on. Let's think about this. Once you become a presidential candidate in the Philippines, it's got to be similar to the United States. You immediately get Secret Service protection if you're in the United States. Can you imagine whatever the equivalent of the Philippine Secret Service is letting a presidential candidate and a major celebrity and figure at that get into a boxing ring somewhere, whether it's the Philippines, whether it's the United States of America, whether it's England, Southeast Asia, go down the list. You really think they're going to let that happen? No, hell no. That's not going to happen. And imagine for a minute, just for a minute, God forbid, he does go into a fight and he ends up with an outcome similar to his fight with Juan Manuel Marquez, where he was knocked out so viciously, most of us who saw it live assumed he was dead. That's not happening. So this is not big news. However, what has now made it bigger news is his manager, whoever he is, Sean Gibbons, aka Knucklehead Sean, saying, "Oh, no, he's not retired." Sean Gibbons has got some vested interest here in seeing that Manny Pacquiao continues in boxing. He certainly is highest profile client, and of course he'd like him to continue. Now, I give more credence to somebody like Freddie Roach, and in lieu of any of that, I give the most credence to the man himself. He apparently claimed he's done. I'm going to take him at his word, and I hope he is. I really think he needs to be done. I don't need to see anything even close to that last version of Manny Pacquiao that we saw. And if he is running to become the president of his country, he's got a big job ahead of him, and he needs to focus. He's got something very important in his future. Not a lot of athletes go right from whatever they're doing in their careers to something with an equal amount of visibility and excitement, adrenaline, prestige, and Pacquiao's one of the few. Don't get much better than going from being one of the greatest boxers of all time to president of your country. So I wish him good luck and Godspeed, and let's see how the election plays out. Stay out of the ring, man.
Quoting Pacquiao, my boxing career is over. It's already over. I've been boxing for a long time already, and my family would always tell me that it's time to stop. I just kept going because I'm so passionate about boxing. But now I'll support boxers so that we can have a champion again. You can't say this is the next Manny Pacquiao. Manny Pacquiao is just a manifestation. He is owned by the Lord who gave all the blessings. Um, Pac-Man Daniel is um, in this century, early quarter of the 21st century, he's one of the greatest fighters to ever lace up the gloves, right? Multiple time world champion in multiple weight divisions. Um, he's 42 years old. His worth is estimated at his net worth is being conservative here 200 to 225 million dollars, right? Um, and the money he's actually, no, I'll just leave it at that. Okay. Uh, Given that backdrop, you know what Sean Gibbons needs to do. Uh, fall back, fall back and have several seats. It's not up to you, sir, to decide or to make the final judgment on in terms of Pacquiao and whether he's retiring or ready to retire and whatnot. Leave it up to that man and leave it up to that family. Yeah, you have a vested interest, but if I'm Pacquiao and I hear Gibbons offering a view that's contrary to what you said in the interview, I would call Gibbons and tell him to pipe down, or uh, you're fired. I'll give you the boot permanently, and I will disassociate you from everything that's involved with me, my promotions, uh, the fighter, Joe Nakajas. Uh, you sit there. You got one job to do, and what you're not going to do is tell me whether I should retire or whether when it's time for me to hang up the gloves.
This is going to be very interesting to watch because we know what happens when boxing retirements. They're hardly believable in this aspect to it. But what makes this interesting is what Manny needs to do right now when it comes into this, because it's not going to be the cakewalk that you would think a casual fan thinks is going to make. People love Manny in the Philippines, and this is like for me talking to people that I know in the Philippines. They love him as a fighter. They love him as a champion. They love him as an icon. They do not like him as a politician. Not a lot of people do. He has his party, but he politically has to do a lot in order to basically have a shot. And you would think that that wouldn't be the case, but no, he's apparent. One of the reasons why he wasn't recognized as a politician was because his boxing schedule was making it seem that he only cared more about boxing than what he actually had to do in the country. So he has a lot of things to build up to that area, and he's got the elections next year, so he does have time. And also, when it comes into making a fight, I get it, Beaver. I get it. You want to make it. You want to try to make a fight. We know you just want to keep the pipeline in the Philippines going for you. But it's going to be a long time until we truly know if Manny's going to go and step into the ring. Because if it starts to look in a campaign trail like he is not going to win, then yeah, you can consider him fighting again. But at that stage, you'll be looking at the 42, about to be 43-year-old Manny Pacquiao. And you would have still be facing a division that may have a Bud Crawford, and depending upon his health, and Errol Spence. And you still have people like Shawn Porter. Oh, and Virgil Ortiz is getting is going to get better. Boots Ennis is going to get better. That division is going to be stacked still. And for Manny's sake, just as a fighter alone, I would say, yeah, step away while you can. You don't want to fall into a situation that a lot of other fighters have come, where you stay far too long for your own good, and you wind up tarnishing points of your legacy, which with Manny, it's almost impossible to do. But there's a chance that that's going to happen. And so I get it. I get what Sean Gibbs' play is. Like we said, boxing retirements are kind of like NFL contracts. They're not worth the toilet paper they're written on at times. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes. If it doesn't look like Manny is going to be the president of the Philippines by that point in the election, I wouldn't be surprised if it talks of another fight happening again. And unfortunately, we all know the only fight that he'll take as far as a money grab.
Let's hope not. Let's hope not. I'm with Gail on this one. If this is indeed a real, I mean, let me take that back. That's the wrong uses of words. He said that he's done. Let's hope for his sake, his family's sake, that he's done. He didn't look great against Ugas, right? Even though I know some people who felt he won, but you can only fight so much. You only got so much in you as a fighter and as an athlete. I sincerely do not want to see him as another case of someone hanging on too long when you don't need to financially, because he's well off. He's after having some issues financially, he's back on the mend, right? And he's pretty set for the rest of his life. He said he's running for he's running for president to help get rid of the widespread corruption which has been rampant through the country, right? Everybody knows it. Financial issues as well, and that's his intentions, and if that's something he wants to do. I'm not going to be mad at him for it. Can he win? That's another story. But I'm glad he is at least trying to make that effort. If his heart is in politics, well off to him. I just don't want to see him in the ring. I'm going back to you, Gail, to give the last word on this announcement, as well as briefly touch on Manny Pacquiao, the fighter, the man who we saw display his talents for 20 plus years in the ring.
If you saw a movie about a life like this, you'd think, well, this is a little far-fetched. It's hard to believe, thinking about a skinny, literally a starving kid on the streets of the Philippines deciding to fight for money so he could eat, so his family could eat. And I don't care how far up you rise when those are your roots, you never forget that. You never forget the feeling of being hungry or feeling desperate when you come from somewhere like that. And sure, when he began to rise through the ranks and enjoy success, I think in the early decade, especially when he became known around the world, gets to your head a little. You've got a lot of money in your pocket. He indulged himself in certain things, but he straightened it up. He got himself right, and he has spent the lion's share of his money over the last few years as a one-man social services agency in the Philippines, which is partly why he has fought on so long. He has given away a lot of those purses, building schools, building homes, building hospitals, funding food programs, scholarships, you name it, to a sizable number of people in the Philippines. They will support his political ambitions and follow him. His boxing career, 8 divisions will, I think, never happen again. Maybe the only current boxer who might come close is Amanda Serrano, because she's just such a freak about jumping around in weight divisions. But it's really going to be a long time coming before anyone does it, if ever, like Pacquiao did. Absolute first ballot Hall of Famer. If he has yet another career as in politics that even touches what he did in boxing, that is more than most people see in one lifetime, let alone packing in 2 lifetimes. And I admire what he's trying to do, his ambitions, and where he is from where he came from. He has to serve as a role model for anybody to show that hard work and determination will get you where you want to go.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I wanted to touch on that. Looks like we have a comment in the chat, the live YouTube chat. MG is here. Appreciate you for joining us. Appreciate you for listening live. He says, I'm going to put it up for everyone to see. He says, I hope Pacquiao stays retired. It's a shame that Riddick Bowe and James Toney have fight scheduled. Oh gosh. Now they should they should be forced to stay retired. I absolutely agree because Tony, Riddick Bowe, oh god, I don't even like talking about that. We just saw the fiasco that was Holyfield being called on last notice and fighting in that farce of an event, and apparently Holyfield, in spite of what happened to him, getting knocked out, less than a minute in the first round, something like that, talking about he wants to fight again. Respectfully, Evander, no, sir, no. Someone needs to sit him down. Save the man from himself. Riddick Bowe, save him from himself. James Toney, he's entertaining to listen to. Save him from himself. These old heads, they don't need to be back in the ring. I don't care if Triller or whoever would to offer him a quick buck here and there. I just don't want to see it. I just don't want to see it. They already got issues on their own. You can hear how each of them talk, and compare it and contrast it to the way they used to sound when they was young and vibrant in their 20s. No more brain damage for these guys. No more brain damage. So let's hope Pacquiao indeed stays retired. Daniel, I believe he's off. I hope he has. I'll reach out to him, see if we can get him back on. But anyway, go back to you, Gail. Let's get to these fights and recap some of these fights that took place not this past weekend, but the weekend prior. Let's start in Tucson. Last time we was on live, a lot of discussion about Oscar Valdez, the positive test for the stimulant, differentiate opinions between VADA, VADA, and WADA, the State Athletic Commission, the local athletic commission in Tucson. They went with WADA. The WBC officially came in agreement with them. So the fight was on between Valdez putting up his WBC 130-pound title against a Brazilian by the name of Conceicao, excuse me. To some, it was first half, second half. The challenger, Conceicao, won the first half, while in the opinion of many, Valdez came on in the second half. I've watched the fight 2-3 times now. I know there's widespread feeling that Valdez deserved the verdict, but the more I watched it, I'm thinking that Conceicao edged it out. I know he slowed down in the second half, but did Valdez really, outside landing some power punches here and there, do that much? I don't know. Maybe I'm just the contrarian here, but I believe Conceicao won. Even if Valdez got the decision, there's a permanent stain on his record given all the things that transpired heading into the fight.
Yeah, what a mess. What a mess. And what a shame for Valdez after coming off by far the biggest win of his career. His absolute beatdown of Miguel Berchelt, which just shocked me. We knew that Valdez was tough. I mean, nobody who saw him fight Scott Quigg will ever doubt that he's tough. He can take it. You fight half a fight with a broken jaw and keep the mouthpiece in so you can hold your face together through the fight. I mean, I can't even imagine the guts that takes. But sometimes his technique has been suspect. That's why he switched over to being trained by the Reynosos, specifically Eddie Reynoso, inside the private camp of Canelo Alvarez, which also means now we understand when guys join that camp, there is a certain culture, there's a certain peer pressure. Canelo runs a tight ship. He insists on work ethic. He insists on people pulling their weight, supporting each other, certain attitude. Oscar seemed like he was completely on board. Well, and then this issue with the phentermine, turning up in a test, and the twisting and excuses made to let that fight continue. Come on, the fans know what's going on here. They found the tiniest little loophole and forced their way through it. And I don't think that served Valdez well, because from now on, he's going to have to work against all the doubters who wondered, what was he doing? Was he trying to build up his endurance? Was he trying to cut weight? Is that how he got through the fight with Burchelt and he just didn't get popped? So now people are comparing that performance just 6 months ago or so in February of this year to what we just saw. And his opponent, Conceicao, I've heard his name pronounced a billion ways, was a much better opponent than we all expected. And we have to ask ourselves why. There's going to be an asterisk, there's going to be question marks in the minds of everyone who saw that fight. Whether you think Valdez won or lost, it was a razor thin decision between the two. The point taken away made a difference on a couple of the scorecards. And there's always going to be doubts. That's such a shame. His stock, Valdez's stock, was so high in February. That still, for a lot of people, is the fight of the year. It's still number one on my list with a few months to go. And his stock couldn't have been higher. Now, I hope he, in his heart of hearts, in the middle of the night when there's no one there but himself to be honest with, has to ask himself, whether what he did, what he didn't do, how it happened, how it went down, was it worth it? Was it worth it? The answer's got to be no. Despite the win, the answer has got to be no. What a shame. Well, he's still a belt holder, which means something to the other men in the division. So that's where it really comes into play. Now we've got a fight coming up between Jamel Herring, Shakur Stevenson, which is a unification fight. They're all top-ranked fighters. So in theory, the winner of the Herring and Stevenson fight should draw Valdez. And if I'm either one of those guys, I'm ready to hit it. Because now you have to wonder, was he propped up in the Burchelt fight? Do we get to fight, whoever of us is the winner, Valdez that I just saw? And if I'm either one of those guys, I cannot wait to go get that belt.
I see Daniel's back. Hopefully he's on. He got his issues corrected. Gail kind of stole my thunder. Last comments kind of led me to the question I was going to ask you, Daniel. As she noted, the fight against Burchelt, his last fight, was a candidate for Fight of the Year, certainly a leading candidate for Knockout of the Year. In prior fights to that, and including in his last fight against Conceicao, he struggled. And he struggled during his time at 126 pounds when he was champion there. If the fighter we saw, if the Valdez we saw a week and a half ago shows up to fight either Herring or Shakur, he gets beat, right? I will argue if that version of Valdez fights a Chris Colbert, for instance, he gets beat. Is the fight with his performance against Burchell, was that a bit of an anomaly, a perfect opponent for his style, or the fight the Valdez who has struggled and had his issues time and time again, is that an indicator of the fight of the boxer he really is? Is he more Burchelt or is he more what we saw a week and a half ago?
That's been the interesting question with Valdez pretty much his entire career. He has stepped up in fights that he needed to. He stepped up against Hrgovic. He stepped up against Quig, and he stepped up against Burchell. But it's those fights in the interim that have largely affected him. As far as the style, where it's either a situation where he didn't take the competition too seriously and didn't train, or because of the certain issues that unfortunately have arisen, is it a situation where he has to focus more on cutting weight than training? So that makes it a very, very difficult thing to judge. And I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt in this aspect because we've seen the pattern before for Valdez. The main situation that's going to happen is that his style works well with somebody like Stevenson, who doesn't hit that much, but doesn't do that well with somebody like Herring, who knows how to box well and knows how to use his advantages. So unless that weight issue has been really what was on his head, he's going to be ripe for the taking, whether it's Herring or whether it's Stevenson. Or he may actually take himself out of the picture altogether and just say, I'm just moving to lightweight. I can't make this. I'm spending too much time cutting weight. He's going to have time to decide, but that is a pretty decent payday he'll miss out. And they both Stevenson and Herring know that that'll be a decent day to miss out if he moves up. But it all depends on what he is at mentally at this point.
If Valdez Conceicao or if Oscar Valdez was the most controversial fighter of that week, um, the fight I should say I was looking forward to the most is the undercard between Junto Nakatani, Daniel, and Angel Acosta. Acosta being a former champion at 108 pounds, Nakatani making the first defense of his WBO belt at 112. It had the makings of a real good fight, Daniel, but it kind of it didn't turn out to be that the case, as Nakatani was very, very impressive. Big, tall guy for that division, lanky southpaw with power. And from the opening bell, he used that height and reach to full advantage. Did severe damage to. Hold on for a second.
Did I hear power?
Go ahead, I'm back.
Did I hear power tool? Power tools or a blender?
Yeah, it was my bad. There was some issues back on my end. But anyway, Daniel, he used his height and reach to full advantage here. In his skill, did severe damage to Acosta's nose. It looked broken, bleeding profusely, and Acosta had no answers for those physical attributes that Nakatani brought to the table. The fight was stopped, I believe, in the fourth round due to the damage on the nose. The thing that I got from this fight and from this win by Nakatani, he may well be the best in the world at 112 pounds.
That was a very, very impressive win by Nakatani. He used every attribute. He used his jab. He used his height. He used his reach. And you can tell he had power in it because, I think he did break Acosta's nose in the first round. But I'm not going to take anything away from Acosta. He fought through it and did fairly well considering their circumstances. Now, The stoppage, yeah, we can decide in that aspect if it's too much because it's the referee, it was the doctor. They kept seeing the nose profusely, and they made a decision based on that. Would it be enough to warrant a rematch? I'd say no, unfortunately, because Nakatani just did enough. He was just younger, faster, and you can tell stronger than Acosta, and he's putting this thing there. Like he's in, and luckily for him, he's within that solar system of weight divisions where you're going to be fighting pound for pound fighters, whether it's Chocolatito, whether it is Gallo, whether it could be Inoue, on the other players at 115, Franco, Maloney. Like there's a lot of options for him. And that is going to be a fun thing to see, but very impressive fight.
Absolutely, and after the fight, he talked about well, before, let me preface this, before the fight, he had made statements that he wanted to follow in the footsteps of his countrymen of Naoya Inoue and to make inroads in the United States. He wanted to fight more often in the United States, and some may not know this, but he studied here in the States. He's trained here in the States multiple times, so there was he was acclimated to the environment. He was not shook heading into the fight, despite this being his first time officially fighting in the United States. Afterwards, he's talked about how he wants to engage in a unification bout at 112 pounds against WBC champion Julio Cesar Martinez. And based on what I saw, those two, given how Martinez has looked in his last couple of fights, if he fights the Nakatani that we saw against Acosta, I know Martinez is awkward. He's strong as a bull, and he can punch, and he has this moxie and bravado, kind of prime Roberto Duran type of aura about him. But just like Acosta had issues getting inside that reach and that length, I could see Martinez having similar difficulty as well. And we've seen Martinez get stunned a couple of times. So I would love to see the fight, but if I had to make a choice and who I think will win, I would have to go with the Japanese fighter. He has the look of being kind of the next one from the land of the Orient. I'll go to you on this one, Gail. Mention Valdez. We just talked about Nakatani. Well, the things that had fans, particularly hardcore heads, outraged the night of this event was a fight between a young fighter from the Bay Area. Well, not Bay Area technically, but still from Northern California, Central California, put it that way. Gabriel Flores Jr. fought a little known Mexican by the name of Alberto Lopez. And from the opening, you could tell that Flores was going to be in for a difficult night. Lopez was in his chest. Lopez was the naturally stronger fighter, as far as I'm concerned. He looked bigger in there. He looked to be the harder hitter, and he kept getting to and kept landing on Flores all fight long. The controversy came from the fact that it got to a point, Gail, where Flores was not just losing, he was taking a beating. There were many, whether it be folks at ringside, Tim Bradley, whether Andre Ward, who was doing commentary on the fight, those in boxing social media, particularly on boxing Twitter, in multiple threads, who were imploring Flores's father, Gabriel Flores Sr., to stop the fight. He let the fight go on. Many argue that he let his son take unnecessary punishment. I know he's 21, Flores Jr., but the kind of punishment he took that night it's going to take him a while to recover from. And was this loss more on the son and the way he performed, or the father because Flores Jr. seemed like he was not prepared from jump. He seemed to tire early, and it was his dad who let him sit in there and take punches after punches after punches unnecessarily, in my opinion.
There is blame for both of them, but in the end, it's the trainer who has to look out for the fighter. We've seen it so many times where the trainer has to save someone who's too brave for their own good. Then let's add in the complication of the father-son relationship. And I don't care who you are, it's fairly rare that the father-son trainer combo can go all the way to the very highest levels. There needs to be a little bit of distance between the two. I applaud, for example, Virgil Ortiz Sr., who has been the primary trainer of his son until he really started to show that he might be elite in welterweight ranks. He didn't completely step away, but he stepped aside in favor of Robert Garcia. Smart thing to do. He puts the primary trainer role in Robert's hands. He plays chief second, if anything. I would like to see more people do that. You think of, for example, if you watched the card last night, you saw Kenny Porter, Shawn's father. That seems to have worked fairly well. There are some infamous combos. Let us name Angel Garcia, Ruben Guerrero. There's a couple of examples too. But the problem where the emotional relationship gets in the way is you have a son who wants to please his father, who wants to make him proud, who doesn't want to let him down, let alone himself. So there's an extra burden. So here's Flores Sr. talking, in that 60 seconds you've got, trying to gauge, son, I think you need to stop. No, Dad, I'm all right. No, I'm okay. It's just a bad conversation. He was truly losing virtually every round. The Flores team is thinking, well, probably maybe he has a puncher's chance. Can he save this thing? It was just bad. And finally, if somebody had been reading from boxing Twitter to them, it was a deafening roar. It's rare that we all agree on something during a fight. We were unanimous by about the 7th or 8th round. That fight needed to end. Tim Bradley knows what it's like to be in a war. Bradley Provodnikov, anybody? When he says a guy's taking too much punishment, Tim knows what he's talking about. Everybody needs to pay attention. That was just awful. I get why it happened. I understand it. I wouldn't be too hard in retrospect on either guy taking the blame, but they do have to recognize what happened. They do need to rebuild, and I think Flores Sr. needs to seriously think about bringing someone else in to take the reins, to provide a unbiased third-party perspective without the baggage. And I say that because there's the emotional overlay of this, that happens between the father-son trainer combo. And they might be one of these pairs like Ortiz Sr. and Jr. That they need to separate themselves. And the pair that I would have thought needed to separate seems to have worked out great. Teofimo Sr. and Teofimo Jr. Go figure. We'll be talking about them in a little bit.
Well, we will see with them when they are, as their career, as Teofimo Jr.'s career goes along. Yes, he's had to fight with Loma, but he has not been put through the kind of physical test where where the rubber meets the road in terms of how his father truly acts. So it's going good now. It's going good now. Let's wait and see 2-3 years down the road whether the relationship is still the same. Quick word on this, Daniel, or do you want to move on to some news?
We can move on to some news. Unfortunately, we've seen the situation too many times, and it's the same story all over again. And like I said, we know the answers to the question. It's just we're gonna see it over and over again, unfortunately, whether we like it or not.
I'll combine two fights into one here before we talked about begin the show with news with one main guy Pacquiao, but going to end the recap with combining two fights into one. Tony Yoka, he fought in France. Roland Garros, the famed tennis stadium where they had the French Open, stopped the guy by the name of Milas is 7. Hrgovic also fought on a card in the zone, stopped some nondescript guy. Radonjic stopped him early as well. Both of those guys, Milas and Radonjic, again, Bob Hope cousin category, no hope. For any of you guys, for any of you who want to touch on this, your thoughts on Yoka and Hrgovic. It seems to me that it's time for both men to kind of step up the competition in 2022.
Yeah, I can say to that now. Yoka probably would have been in the same level as Daniel Dubois is right now, but unfortunately, he did get suspended for the year for, like I said, for those issues that he had. So he has to play a little bit of catch up in that sense. Hrgovic is going to be a very interesting play to see what they're going to do because Matchroom is going to want to try to put as many contenders as they can, whether or not Anthony Joshua is holding the belts or not, because they want to make sure that they can at least have a few players in the heavyweight game. And they technically do. They have one in Dillian White, even though you would never think so. But that it'll be interesting to see how they're going to shape up in the next year. I think the direction is going to depend on what we're going to see within the next month in the heavyweight division.
Let's move on to some news here, and I'll go back to you, Gail. Two main stories I want to talk about. I want to split these up just to cut some time here. Look, we've talked about Terence Crawford a lot and the lack of a big name opponent at 147 pounds. Hadn't fought a significant guy since he's moved up and won a title at welterweight. Well, long rumors that he's the WBO put it this way: the WBO ordered that he fight Shawn Porter. A lot of talk about whether that fight would truly happen. Well, during our time off, it was announced that indeed Crawford and Porter will fight November the 20th in Las Vegas. I'm not sure if it's going to be on ESPN Top Rank or PBC. That yet to be determined as of this recording, unless you got some breaking news on that. But the bottom line is, for folks, ourselves included, who've been kind of yelling for Bud to have a big fight at welterweight, we got it now. Crawford Porter is on.
If ever there was a boxing year that needed a big fight like this is it. And in a lot of other years, this wouldn't have been the biggest fight, but it's relative. And we're all sort of drooling and salivating at the thought of finally a decent boxing meal. I like the matchup. Top Rank and Premier Boxing, aka Al Haymon, have worked together before. Well, they can do it when they want to. They're motivated. This is a good matchup. I would like to have seen Shawn Porter at home in the gym or taking a rest instead of commentating last night on the PBC Sunday night broadcast. But hey, his dad was in the corner with one of their other guys, so I guess he decided, it's not that far. We're in Bakersfield. What the heck? Get to work today. Hopefully he did. And man, Bud just needed to get back in the ring with somebody of decent quality, and he didn't have a lot of choices, so thank God this one paid off. The more I think about this fight, the more I think we watch the build-up, I think the more we'll appreciate it. And Shawn could give Bud a lot of problems. On the other hand, if Terence can take out Shawn in a way that some of his previous opponents, Keith Thurman, Errol Spence, couldn't, that's going to say a lot about Bud Crawford. So I'm very, very interested to see this fight. It's a hardcore fans fight. Even though to us, those are fairly big names in American boxing. I hope it's promoted well because I do think it'll be a lot of fun to watch.
On paper, Crawford has never faced someone the likes of Porter. Um, the rough rumble style, the physical strength, the fact that he's in your chest all fight long. It's going to be interesting how Terence handles that aggressiveness from Porter, and we've seen in Porter he's fought everybody tough. He's fought just about everybody in the division, every prominent name in the division, be it Spence, be it Thurman, be it Garcia, be it Ugas. Crawford is next in line. He said he's wanted this fight with Crawford more than any other, more than a rematch with Spence, who's on the shelf, more than another fight with Ugas. Crawford is the guy he wants. He's going to get him, and I just hope the fight lives up to the hype. That's what I want. I'm not even going to try to root for a winner. I'm not even going to root for a winner. I just want a good fight. People wanted Bud to have a test at 147 pounds. My hope is he gets it. I believe he will. And it may not be the most aesthetically pleasing fight, may not be the prettiest fight to look at, but I think this is going to be a grind. And I think Terence Crawford, he's going to be put through some things that he's never had to deal with before. Again, I want to see how he reacts. This is going to be the fight. If Terence Crawford is the great fighter that a lot of people feel that he is, Porter's going to show it. Porter's going to make him show it because he's going to have to be at his game, on his A game, to beat him. Going to the ladies here, Daniel. Going to the ladies. Look, Mikaela Mayer has, even before she's won the title, she's talked a lot about how she thinks she's the next superstar. When she won the WBO belt, right? The first thing she screamed was unification. It's been long talked about how there was works behind the scenes for her to fight IBF champion Maiva Hamadouche. Word on these boxing streets are that the fight is going to happen November 5th. Headliner, your thoughts about this, whether it's Eddie Hearn over in the Zone, whether it's this fight, whether it's the proposed World Boxing Super Series, whether the World Boxing Super Series, who said their first tournament out the gate in 2022 will feature women's, the 130-pound women. It looks like all roads are leading to an undisputed champion for the ladies at 130 pounds. Look like this fight between Mayer and Hamadouche is the jump off to that.
That is going to be a very, very fun fight. And Mayer's, she does get lost a bit in the shuffle because obviously you're competing with, as far as like clout, when like Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano. This is one of the fights that's going to make sure that she gets her name put there. And that is going to be a very interesting thing. And if it's the headliner, that tells you the confidence that Top Rank has to even allow it to be put in the headliner at this stage of Mikaela's career. It tells you how much confidence they have in her. So the main thing we have to see is, I know it's been the clarion call of the program. See if they can finally talk some sense into the commissions and making this 3-minute rounds.
Yeah.
that's the main thing to look forward to. And also, like I said, this is Mikaela Mayer's introduction into making sure that her name does get mentioned with Serrano and with Taylor.
Well, here's the deal with the 3-minute rounds. There are many states where it is permitted. It's up to the commission. It's the athletic commissions have given their blessing. It is up to the sanctioning organizations. It is up to the fighters. It is up to the promoters. Now, the WBC will not sanction 3-minute rounds. They won't do it. They've been squarely against it. They've donated money to programs studying the so-called pink concussion, particularly at UCLA. There's some questions about where the data came from and whether it's legit, which is awfully interesting. So any WBC fight, not going to happen. Some of the other fighters, promoters, are more accepting. You might remember the barn burner fight between Senicia Estrada and Marlon Esparza. Part of the reason that was such a good, exciting fight, 3-minute rounds. 3-minute rounds, folks. That was in California where it's permitted. It's permitted in Nevada. It's permitted in New York and New Jersey. What do they have in common? By far the 4 most experienced commissions. They allow it. So you just got to get everyone on the same page for it to happen. You know, it's funny. In the Olympics for the first time this year in Tokyo, all of the amateurs, including the women, fought 3-minute rounds. Now, they still fight with headgear as amateurs. The men don't anymore. I wouldn't be surprised if the women lose the headgear and they're fighting 3-minute rounds. Yes, they're only fighting 3, but the tide's turning. It's not quite turning fast enough for some of us.
Yeah, let's hope that I'm not sure where this fight is going to be held, but wherever it is, let's hope the local state commission or the state commission allows this to be opens the door, I should say, for this to be a 3-minute rounds at this point. I don't think it's a big deal having 3-minute rounds as opposed to 2-minute rounds. Women can fight; they have their endurance to fight 3-minute rounds. You'll probably get more exciting fights if there were 3-minute rounds. I don't see a problem with that happening. Let's hope that's the case, particularly with this unification bout, which is going to be a high profile fight on the ESPN platform. Let's go on. Let's move on to preview some fights here. I can handle this first fight. Kenshiro Teraji returning to the ring on the 22nd to fight his mandatory contender, a guy by the name of Yabuki. This fight was supposed to take place on the 10th of September, but in early August, the champ tested positive for COVID. He quick recovery. Tested positive, I want to say the 5th or the 6th. In a couple of weeks, he tested negative after going through a series of tests in his native country, Japan, CAT scan, and all the other things there. He was given the okay to resume training. Wanted to return, wanted to get back into the ring ASAP. Found the date, and here it is against Yabuki. Yabuki is the naturally bigger fighter, but he's also the significantly older fighter, right? I think that age is going to play in this fight in favor of the champion. I think because of his youth, because of his advantage in height, and he's a pretty big puncher for 108 pounds, right? I think he can use that length and use that ring to outbox Yabuki and use the power, his underrated body punching ability to slowly but surely wear down the challenger. And I think Teraji is going to win this fight by decision. Move on to two other fights here that's going to appear on It's going to take place this weekend at Tottenham Stadium, Hotspur Stadium in London. Big card, the return of Anthony Joshua. But first, for those who want to touch this fight, Lawrence Okolie, who won the WBO cruiserweight title. For once, he actually looked impressive in the fight. He fairly impressive in that win. Fighting Prasovic, which I believe is his mandatory challenger. Correct me if I'm wrong, folks, but I know up until his last fight, Okolie had the reputation of not being the most exciting fighter in the world. I mean, let me take that back. He had the reputation of being boring, just walking, just a box, just a box of no-dos inside the boxing ring. For those who want to touch it, for those who want to talk about this fight, your thoughts?
Well, he can't do any worse than the last few fights. I'll say that. He can't do any worse than the last few fights, but he did show something in winning the title. So hopefully this builds up into it. You know, the cruiserweight division is still rebuilding after Usyk left. So there's a chance to put his mark in there because there's going to be other fighters. Obviously, some veterans. Dorticos is still there. Breedis is still there. So there's going to be some challengers coming up. So might as well make your mark. But yeah, he does have that reputation he needs to undo.
Yeah, the cruiserweight division.
Sorry, I was going to say I was contemplating whether asking Gail whether you want to talk about this because I don't know if you want to go through the struggle of trying to give an explanation of this, give us some analysis of this fight and make it sound halfway exciting.
You know, the only thing is that, while you've got some of the longtime top names still hanging around, it's a pretty open division. I really wish Michael Hunter would bring down his weight and fight there. I think he would do so well. But, heavyweight's where the glamour and the money is, and I get that. It's just he's a small heavyweight. And that tells you a lot about the division when I'm talking about a guy that doesn't even fight in the division when I'm talking about the division.
On the main event is the big fight of the weekend. That is Anthony Joshua putting his IBF, WBA, WBO heavyweight titles on the line against Oleksandr Usyk, who's a mandatory contender according to the WBO. Daniel, I'm hearing varying opinions on this fight. Joshua is the favorite. Some believe that he's going to use his overall size and power to wear down Usyk. On the other end of the scale, I hear discussions about Usyk, who's former undisputed cruiserweight champion, probably most skilled big man that Joshua has ever faced. He's going to use Usyk is going to use that his skills, his movement, right, and his guile to give Joshua problems. I've heard more than one person predict upset here. Your thoughts?
Add me to the list. Add me to the list. I can see Usyk beating Joshua because a couple of factors. Number one, that skill set, the footwork of Usyk, the combination punching of Usyk. And while he may not have as fast hands as Andy Ruiz, he makes up for it in the other areas that Ruiz was lacking, both in the first and in the second fight, obviously with Joshua. And we know, technically Russ Abner is the trainer, but we know the actual leader of that camp is Papachenko. And they know they're going to have a good game plan against somebody who, unfortunately, Joshua, we know can be chinny. And we also know that one of the things that can negate him is the stamina when it comes into fights, because he has to carry a lot of muscle. Yes, AJ is the naturally bigger guy, He should be the naturally stronger guy. Sometimes, though, the size and the strength don't always win. It's the skill, it's the maneuvering, it's the ring generalship. And those are the areas that I think Usyk has an advantage over AJ. Now, does it ruin a lot of plans? Yes. Can it make excitement for other plans? Also, yes. So, and would it be somewhat revenge for Klitschko? Yeah. I could see Usyk taking it that way. He is a proud Ukrainian. So I fully expect it, but it's not going to be something fast. I predict late knockout from wearing out by Usyk.
Do you share Daniel's observation, Gail?
I would like to. Emotionally, speaking strictly as a fan, I like the upsetting the apple cart. I like what Usyk represents. He has a great work ethic. His skills are undeniable. But he is fighting. He's going to be on the opponent's turf and then some. That stadium is going to be lit by the British fans. Now, Usyk does have a following there because he won his gold medal in London. So he does have fans in Great Britain, but who are we kidding? They're going to be the minority there. Even though they will be there, he will make it very interesting, very close. Joshua can't make any mistakes, but if they fight anywhere close to even, Joshua will get the nod because of where they're fighting. The judges, I don't care what they say, they're human beings. They hear the crowd. They feel the reaction. It does make a difference, especially in a really close fight. Usyk absolutely has a chance. And I so want to favor him. I'm not going to do it. I think Joshua will take a decision that is more of a technical fight than a barn burner and lead us to the holy grail of fights that we all want to see, Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua.
I'm going to say it is a distance fight. If it's going to be a knockout, it will be Joshua, because Usyk, in my opinion, he hasn't been hit yet by a big man, particularly a big man of Joshua's power. I agree with Gail. If it's close in any way, Joshua will get the decision, and I think Joshua will get the decision. It's going to be rough for him. He's going to have his moments where he's going to get tagged and tagged clean. There's going to be moments where Usyk is going to box his shoes off. But I just think that somehow Joshua, when it comes down to it, and when they read the scorecards, Joshua will end up getting a decision. If Usyk wins, it would have to be by wide decision, 9-3, 10-2 of that matter. Can Usyk do that against a Joshua who, from what I'm hearing, is going to be leaner coming into this fight? They're not going to have as much muscle. Who knows? Joshua's talked about making this a tactical fight, about the boxing brain instead of brawn. He's not the boxer that Usyk is, but I just believe that when it comes down to it, Joshua will have his hand raised in victory, even if he doesn't. Even if many feel that he didn't earn the verdict that night. Too much invested in terms of long-term plans, particularly on the part of AJ, that, yeah, he's going to get it somehow, some way. And I think we're going to end the show on that note. I want to thank, let's check the chat here right quick. Give me a quick second. My apologies. I want to thank MG is here for her earlier comments. Going to go around the panel here. Began the show with ladies first. Going to end the show with ladies first. Gail from Communities Digital News, the Falcon Valley Group, nyfights.com for the folks who want to talk boxing or talk media, or for the folks who want to check you out on TMZ Live, which you was on earlier today. Let the folks know where they can hit you up.
I was on. If you'll check your local listings, it might still be running in your area. I even scared my poor damn nephew, who was innocently eating lunch, looks up and says, "Damn, that's my aunt on TMZ Live." When I'm not on TMZ Live, my regular columns run both in Communities Digital News, COMMDIGI news.com, and nyfights.com. That's the one where I get to swear about things. So you'll see two sides of my boxing coverage, both fact and opinion, and I'll be in full effect this weekend.
Daniel from the Inscribing for Boxing News for those who want to talk the sweet science, for those who want to talk professional wrestling, for those who want to talk the NBA, particularly as it pertains to Miami Heat. Let the folks know where they can hit you up.
So you can follow me on Twitter, Rawkus99, RAWKUZ99. I'm going to have some surprises this week coming up, going into it, but we're going to hopefully have a month where we don't have to cross our fingers, because we have to remember, folks, this is Joshua Usyk, and then not 2 weeks after that, barring any catastrophe, it's Fury Wilder 3.
I forgot to talk about this. Let's touch on this right quick before I give my information where folks can hit me up. Going to you, Gail, right quick. Issues regarding this fight between Teofimo Lopez and Kambosos that's going to supposedly happen early October. More drama surrounding that fight?
There apparently is more drama surrounding the fight, appearing on Triller. They've already danced around with the dates. The most recent show we did, we thought the fight was going to be on a Tuesday night, October 5th, and just that afternoon, no, we don't want to compete with a American League playoff game potentially in New York that night, so we shift back to Monday. They'd rather go up against Monday Night Football, apparently October 4th. Well, now Ryan Kavanaugh at Twitter told ESPN's Ariel Helwani, hey, actually, I take that back. He's no longer affiliated with ESPN, formerly of ESPN. Tells him, well, now we're thinking about moving it to another date. And, oh, by the way, we're going to move it out to the Barclays Center. Say what? Is that true? And the Lopez team, rightfully so, immediately upon hearing that was floating out in the wind, said, whoa, wait a minute. We're in camp. We're weeks away. You just can't yank the rug out from under fighters who time their training at the elite level down to the hour practically. What the hell are they thinking? What a mess this has become. If I'm the Lopez camp, I just say, what does it take to just get out and move along? This has just become a mess. And it all started, admittedly, on Lopez Jr.'s part when he got COVID and he hadn't been vaccinated. But that's water under the bridge. It just couldn't be made any messier from what's transpired lately. I don't know if it's ticket sales, it's some kind of issues. Triller has said in the past they didn't give a damn about ticket sales because, frankly, they got in the way of the camera angles when they have live performers. I don't think they're planning to do that for this fight. This card appears to be really their first just straight up focused on boxing alone card. And I can't help but think that it puts them out of their comfort zone without the entertainment elements wrapped around it, and that they're getting cold feet over it. I'm reaching for explanations, and that's the best I can do.
You're going to say something, Daniel?
Yeah, I started digging a little bit into it. We may have to blame Dipset and the Locks on this one. That's all I'm going to say. We know what happened in that versus, and it apparently looks like the Garden got mad. That's all I'm going to say on that. But
for those who can read between the lines, yeah,
but it makes a bit of logistical sense because you're not moving it luckily the way in New York City. You're still in Barclays. The part of that situation is going to be what's different is what are you going to be competing against? So yeah, if you're competing against MLB playoffs, that's going to take precedent. New York City, no matter what they say, it is a baseball town. So that's going to take a factor into it, but they have to get this done at this point. They have to get it done because whether it's been COVID, whether you believe that, because there's some people that still don't believe that, or if it's a situation where you try to take it to a place where you don't have to quarantine, this has just been a mess. And if they mess up one more time, I would not blame the IBF if they just said, you know what, enough is enough. Yeah, you have to wait a little bit longer, but let's just have a new purse bid because this promoter doesn't have their shit together.
Just sounds just unprofessionalism across the board from Triller. And again, given what we talked about earlier, what I hinted at earlier with Holyfield and that card, that event, which again, as I mentioned before, farcical, a joke, an insult to the sport. Yeah, I mean, look, this nonsense makes makes the Paul brothers and their boxing events look good. And y'all know I detest, I loathe talking about the Paul brothers in any capacity. Triller, get some act right. Get some act right. If you can't get your stuff together, again, like Daniel said, IBF reschedule a purse bid and have Aram, Hearn, whoever wants to bid outside of Triller, let them do it because this is getting ridiculous at this point. Fight being off, fight being on, schedule, reschedule. Now they're thinking about moving it to a different location because, as Daniel hinted at, versus and everything that went down there, right? This is a cluster, you know what? It just doesn't make any sense at all. Gail gave the information where folks can follow her. So did Daniel. I'm going to give mine right quick while we get ready to shut things down. For those who want to follow me or talk to me about boxing, music, fitness, you know what it is on Twitter, Brother JR at Brother JR76. As I said at the beginning of the show, for those who want to check out all information regarding Pound for Pound Box Report, p4pboxingreport.com. If you want to email the show with some comments or questions, please do so. p4pboxing at p4pboxingreport.com. Check out the site, the blog, for information where to find us, where to follow us on social media, the Tumblr page, the Twitter page, the YouTube page. We're on IG as well. Facebook, yeah, it's shaky right now. Also, check out the site, the blog, to where to follow us all over the podcast realm. Got links to catch the show on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, on Google Podcasts, Anchor. And if you just search any podcast platform, you should be able to find Pound for Pound Boxing Report, POUND, the number 4, POUND Boxing Report. Also on the site, you can find links to where you can donate. Cash Me a PayPal donation link. Again, if you want to take part in my fitness group challenge, or if you want to check out all things Beachbody and Beachbody on Demand, check out my coaching link towards the bottom portion of the page on the next episode. I've been teasing about the Ladies Love Boxing show, our next edition of that. The plan for now is, fingers crossed, is to take next week off so I can fully prepare, have 2 weeks of good prep, have at least a good solid week in the interim to prepare for the Ladies Love Boxing show, which the hope is to have it in a couple of weeks. And if we're successful, what we will do is we will recap the Joshua card, Joshua Usyk, Okolie and his mandatory defense. We will talk Teofimo Lopez and Kambosos. We may talk Kenshiro and his title defense, and we will have a full in-depth preview of the trilogy between Tyson Fury putting up his WBC heavyweight strap against former champion Deontay Wilder. So that is the plan. Take next week off, return in 2 weeks, have the Ladies Love Boxing show the week of Fury Wilder 3. I want to thank everybody who joined us in the live YouTube chat. Thank you for your comments. For Gail from Communities Digital News, the Falcon Valley Group, nyfights.com, for Daniel, the Inscriber, and for Boxing News. I am your host, Michael. This has been episode 339 of Pound for Pound Box Report. We will see you guys next time. And too many people dying, too many people passing away. Rest in power, AJ Johnson. For those who watched Friday, they may know him from Ezel telling Debo he got knocked the you-know-what out at the end of the first Friday. News came down earlier this morning that unfortunately he passed away. So rest in power, AJ Johnson. Episode 339, Pound for Pound Box Report. We will see you guys next time. Everyone have a good day, good evening, good night, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.